By 2050, it's expected that more than 2/3 of us will live in cities. And more people means more pressure on our urban waterways, which are being contaminated with everything from human waste to old cars and pollution from heavy industry. We're here in Concrete Plant Park in the South Bronx to meet Majora Carter, who's been pivotal in making a green change in this community. Hi, Majora, how are you?
I'm good.
Good, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So tell me, have you always been able to do this along the banks of the Bronx River?
It feels like it, but in actuality, no. I mean, it's been only about a decade, since all the parks that you're going to be able to visit along the river have actually been here.
The river runs through the South Bronx. The mostly Black and Latino neighborhood is one of the poorest areas of New York City. And for decades, the Bronx River was treated as an open sewer.
Folks in the community really were feeling put upon. We were literally the repository for many environmental burdens that mostly people that were wealthier and or whiter within New York City didn't have to deal with. And I thought, what we really need to do is reclaim a piece of the land for something that's for us, and also use it for our benefit and enjoy it.
Community leaders like Majora Carter teamed up with the city and the Parks Board to clean up the river one piece of garbage at a time. Together they removed 675 tons of trash, 30,000 old tires, and 89 dumped cars. It literally took an army, and even the National Guard was involved.
I had to help folks in the neighborhood understand that, one, there was a river here. And then we also had to help people understand that the environment was not something that was out there, in some other part of the country, but it was right here in their backyard. And we actually had this amazing natural resource that if we were strategic about it, we could use it as an educational, as an economic, as a beautiful space, a recreational place for us to be a part of. And that was something that I don't think anybody really thought you could find in a poor community of color.
Welcome aboard. Where to, ma'am?
You're the guide, so you gotta tell us. Adam Green is an environmental educator. He's been working to help restore the Bronx River for the past 10 years.
Literally on the surface is all this garbage right here behind us. And this is a fascinating remnant of the river in another time from another perspective. Well, wow, it's a TV in there. That's amazing.
Oh, really?
An old cathode ray TV. This is not the really bad stuff. The real problem with the Bronx River and with all the rivers around New York City is the result of a combined sewage system where every time it rains more than a quarter of an inch, raw sewage is released into the river. You're sort of seeing the worst of it and smelling the worst of it now, and I don't even know what this stuff is. It looked like plastic, but then it kind of degrades as soon as I touch it. Yuck.
And so literally there is untreated sewage that comes from that sewer pipe there into the river.
Every time there's a heavy rain, raw sewage comes out of that pipe. It's a century-old sewer system that was designed when people weren't thinking about the rivers as a place to maintain and use recreationally or environmentally. They were just not our problem. So good, stick it there, just like the oceans.
The untreated sewage flowing into the Bronx River from the old stormwater system makes the water toxic for most wildlife.
Welcome, this is Rockin the Boat.
Adam runs an organization called Rockin the Boat that recruits teenagers from the neighborhood to clean up the river.
Cool.
Here she is.
But the job begins on land. What's the connection between boat building and cleaning up the river?
Well, the way we clean up the river is by getting out on it. Well, why are we building boats? Well, we need our boats to do all the science to bring the river back to life.
What part of the boat is this?
This is the bulkhead. This is what's gonna keep the boat absolutely watertight.
If the bulkhead isn't watertight, then you risk the boat sinking, which you really don't want to have happen. So it's important that you don't mess up
All right, so no pressure on me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this.
These young apprentices aged 16 to 18 are being paid to do river restoration work. The students' water quality readings tell them that the river is currently being overrun by algae. It's caused by a combination of hot temperatures and excess phosphates and nitrates in the water. So when you discover a problem, what can you do about it?
Oysters and seaweed and mussels are really good at filtering a lot of this excess nutrients out of the water. So we actually have an oyster garden upriver that we're going to check for the first time today.
1, 2, come on. 3. The oysters used to be size of dinner plates, but now they're just like really small, and then we're trying to get them back to the way they were. They used to filter 200 gallons a day each one. Now they filter 50 gallons a day.
200 gallons?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Each of these oyster cages are basically a test site for possible reintroduction sites. They're also serving a minor ecosystem function of biofiltration and taking nutrients out of the water.
You said biofiltration. What is that, and why is that important?
So biofiltration is essentially the process by which living organisms take nitrogen and phosphorus out of the water supply. In industrial areas or areas with heavy pesticide use, there tend to be a lot of excess nitrogen and phosphorus in the water. Once upon a time, there were, about 100 plus years ago, this was the #1 market for oysters in the entire world. Since industrialization in the area, most of these oysters have died off. It's not a good habitat for oysters these days anymore. It's a rough life out there for an oyster, so.
35 of the 50 oysters the students measured have survived and are growing, and it turns out that the filter feeders can still thrive in these waters. The final step? Understanding what organisms still maintain their habitat in the Bronx River.
Okay, there we go, and that's good. We're gonna come closer together, okay? And then we're gonna sweep the net up as fast as we can. There we go. All righty. There's lots of things living in this water. When you see the number of birds that are around the river, that's a good bioindicator that there are things living that are feeding those birds.
So there is actually life in this river.
Yes. Even though you can't see all of it, there is still some life, and there's something to fight for.
And for you, why is that so important?
Well, it's so important for me because this is home for me. You know, I plan on going on many places in the world, but I always want to come back home and do for my community back here.
In poor communities all over the country, I don't care what color, we are taught that we have less value, that we have really nothing to contribute. And when you give people an opportunity to do that, and they do, their sense of self, their sense of power becomes such that they can go on and do all sorts of great things in their lives.